Hello students, welcome to the second lecture of Unit 4, that is Requirement Analysis and Specification. In the previous lecture, we studied about the phases of the requirement engineering process or the tasks of the requirement engineering process. We saw that in a total of these 7 different things are taking place in form of tasks in order to collect the requirements from the client and start developing your software. A quick revision: in the inception part, we saw how we are actually starting the process of requirement gathering. In the elicitation part, we saw that we are actually gathering the requirements. In the elaboration part, we saw that we are representing all the requirements in form of a model for analysis purpose. In the negotiation part, we saw that we are trying to develop a win-win situation for the developers as well as the stakeholders or the users, and delivering the functionalities which are important. Specification, we are listing out each and every requirement of a customer in a document called as an SRS. In validation, we are checking for errors, inconsistencies, ambiguities. And in case of requirement management, we are adapting to the new changes which are coming by the client to our developers, and we are adapting them in the regular phase of software development. We will now see why we require elicitation actually in details. Okay, so elicitation, we already know that it is a task where you are asking the customer, the user, or the stakeholder regarding what are the objectives of the system being developed, like how the system will fit into the business needs, or what is to be accomplished, or how the product will be used on daily basis, or who is the target audience whom the software will be effective to. Now, all this will seem a very easy task, but in reality, it is a very tedious process that is to be followed. The task doesn't seem as simple as it appears to be. Now, why tedious? It is tedious because of the three basic reasons. First reason is the problem of scope. The problem of scope is like the customer who is defining the system is actually defining an ill-defined boundary of the system. Now, when the boundary of the system is ill-defined, then you won't be able to get the requirements properly. Like the user will specify unnecessary technical details. Now, these unnecessary technical details will lead to confusion rather than clarification of understanding the system. So that is a problem of scope. Next is problem of understanding. The problem of understanding happens when the customer himself is lacking proper understanding of the requirements. Now you may be thinking that it is not possible that the customer will not know what he actually wants from the software. But it's actually true when a user does not have a proper domain knowledge. He just knows that this is the requirement of the market and he's bringing it to the user, to the developer. So he is not actually having a proper understanding of the domain. So in that case, the proper understanding of requirements is lacking in the customer. So you need to fulfill that, but not expect from him. Next is he may be lacking communication skills. He may be having trouble to talk with the developers, and he's not able to convey his requirements or his needs in a satisfactory manner to the system engineer. So that will also create a problem of understanding, and the development of the software will not be up to mark. Next is if they believe in the obvious terminology, like the client may believe that it is obvious that you have to deliver this, but it may not be obvious from the developer's point of view. So that is the obvious terminology. Next is they may be having conflicting requirements. Like if you are delivering one particular software to more than one customer, then a particular customer may be having a taste for a particular functionality, whereas the other client may not be having a liking towards that particular functionality. So there may be conflicting requirements due to which there may be a problem of understanding. Next is the problem of volatility. Volatility means you know that change is inevitable, it will occur off and on, and therefore the requirements of the client will keep changing. Also, the market needs, the business needs will also change as per demand. So in that case, there will be a dire need to change the requirements of your system. Now, due to this, requirement gathering or elicitation phase is needed so that the customer and his needs can be organized effectively. Okay, so now in the elicitation phase, we are moving to requirement elicitation. Requirement elicitation we will see in the today's lecture. Now, requirement elicitation process, it consists of collaborative elicitation. The name itself is suggesting that you are working together in a team. The next is quality function deployment, that is you are checking for quality. Next is usage scenarios, where you are showing your system in a functionality wise, means how the user is going to view the system as. Then you will see the categories of requirements which are functional as well as non-functional requirements. And finally, we will be moving to elicitation work products. Now, collaborative elicitation. Collaborative elicitation is something where it encourages a collaborative or a collective team-oriented approach to requirement gathering. Now, what happens here is you have all the stakeholders working together in order to identify the problem, the purpose, and solutions. Okay, so there are many approaches to collaborative requirement gathering. Like you can conduct meetings or hold meetings. Now, these meetings are attended by the developer and the stakeholders. In the meetings, there are certain rules for participation and you have to come pre-prepared for the meeting. There is a controller in the meeting and that controller can be a customer, he can be a developer or he can be an outsider. Now, in order to highlight certain things, you can use worksheets, you can use flip charts, stickers, electronic bulletin boards, etc. Now, the main agenda of this meeting or purpose of this meeting is to find a win-win solution for the satisfaction of the customer as well as the developer. Okay, so what you are doing in the meeting is you are having a one-on-one question and answer session. Now, this brainstorming is going to help you to find out the statement of scope, that is the technical boundaries of your system. Next is it will give you the description of the technical environment, what kind of team members are present, what kind of skills they possess. Next is it gives you a list of requirements and list of constraints. Now, requirements means it is going to give you a long list of what are the features that a client wants. And plus it will give you constraints that in this much budget, you cannot give them these many functionalities. So you come to analyze in what are the requirements that you can drop if you have a low budget. So like this, you have to balance between the requirement and constraints. Then in the meetings, you can show up prototypes if you have developed. Prototype is nothing but a toy implementation of the basic software product. So you can bring up prototypes if any. You can show use cases. We have studied use cases in the prerequisite lecture. We will be studying in this part of this chapter also. You are developing a use case. Use case or is nothing but the functionalities that your software is going to deliver. It also characterizes how the user will interact with the system. So if it's a library management software, the user is going to either issue a book or he is going to search for a book or the librarian will order the book. So use cases will show all the functional requirements. Next is the quality function deployment. Quality function deployment. The quality function deployment actually is a way in which a customer's technical requirements are translated. Means it is going to help you manage the quality of a software, and whatever the needs of the customers are there, we can specify it to technical requirements, not just an literal English meaning, but something which could be brought up into coding language. Now, what is the goal of QFD? The main goal of QFD is it is done to satisfy the customer by giving a very high quality product, and it is going to focus on what is valuable to the customer. Now, three things can be valuable to a customer as per his requirements, because his requirements are divided into three different parts. Now, first is a normal requirement. A normal requirement is nothing but when your objectives and goals are stated in the meeting with the customer. If these goals and objectives are present in the software that you are delivering, then the customer is satisfied. Like for example, if you are preparing a stock management software, then graphical display of all the things is a normal requirement. It should be there, and if you don't deliver that, your client may be dissatisfied. Okay. Then your all the regular functionalities that you are asking, they will be inside the normal requirement. Next is expected requirements. Expected requirements are those requirements in which uh, it is not specified explicitly by the client that I want this, but the developer has to understand that it is very obvious that he has to deliver this. So it is implicit to a product, they are basic needs, and the customer doesn't need to specify them. But if they are absent, it will lead to dissatisfaction of the customer. Like if you have errors in a software, if your graphical user interface is not very flexible, it is not easy to use, it is not easy to install, plus whatever calculations suppose you are doing in the software, then they are not reliable. And next is exciting requirements. These are the features that go beyond the customer's expectation. So it is very satisfying when these are delivered to the customer in the form of a software, because they may not be expecting it, but the current need of the market may somewhat accept it very easily, and it may be a need of the current market. So it may be exciting to the customer when you deliver such requirements. Now let us take an example. Mobile phone comes with standard features like multi-touch screen and the usual voice mail feature. Okay, so these are the FQDs. Next is you are bringing out expected and exciting requirements for the customer through voice table and its analysis. Now, what is a voice table? A voice table is, first of all, what happens is we can understand that normal requirements are specified by the customer. But what about the expected and exciting requirements? How will you find them? So using FQD, in FQD, you are having customer reviews, you are searching observations, you are doing surveys, you are examining historical data, and you are gathering all the customer requirements. Now, these requirements are translated into a table of requirements, and this table is called the customer voice table. Now, this table is presented to the customer and the users and stakeholders for reviewing. And after this review, diagrams, matrices, and certain evaluation methods are used to bring out the desired or the exciting requirements. Okay. Next is use case or usage scenario. The usage scenario is nothing but an overall vision of the system functions and how the system will function, like how the user is going to interact with the system. So it uses some use cases. Use cases are nothing but they provide a description of how the system will be used. And it is represented by a scenario diagram, which we have seen in the prerequisite lecture. And we will be seeing this in details in the further topics. So I'm not covering this part currently. Now, what are the categories of your requirements? We are saying that all the features of the system, all the functionalities of the system, but what actually is functionality? So, functionality or requirement is a keyword. They are both, you can say, a synonym of each other. Functional requirements are those requirements which are specifying what your system is actually doing. So functional requirement, you can say that you are doing transactions like you are depositing money, you are withdrawing money, you are issuing a book, you are searching for a book, you are logging inside your system. These are the features or functional requirements. You can take photographs. So these are the functionalities or functional requirements. And what are non-functional requirements? They are specifying how a system will perform certain function. Like if it is doing an arithmetic operation, then it should be a reliable operation. If I'm doing 2 plus 3 and it gives me 7, then it is not a reliable operation. So non-functional requirements are something that you are not performing, that the system is performing for you, and they are something on which the whole functional requirements will rely upon. If non-functional requirements are not proper, your functional requirements may not be appealing or helpful to you. Let us see the things in detail. We have taken an example of functional library management. Add book, update, delete, search, issue, buy, payment, and inquiry or placing order are functional requirements, whereas your library management is said to be non-functionally fulfilling the requirements when it is safe, when it is secure, when there are no constraints, and it is reliable. Next, we are moving on to elicitation work products. Elicitation work products are nothing but outcomes of elicitation. So when you are doing some requirement gathering, what is the final outcome of requirement gathering? So these are the following work products or outcomes of elicitation. First is, after elicitation, you can get a clean and neat statement of feasibility as well as requirement. You can get a boundary of what within what you have to develop your software. So boundary of scope, you can get a list of all the customers and stakeholders who had participated in the meetings of requirement gathering. You can get a complete description of the technical environment under which you have to produce this software. You can come to know the skills of the team. You can come to know about the infrastructure, about the technology on which you are going to work. You can get a list of the domain requirement domains, like in which domain you are supposed to work or do research upon in order to develop this software. You can also know about a set of usage scenarios, which says that all your functional requirements should be very clear. And if you have developed any prototype, then you can define a prototype and show it in the as a work product. And finally, after these elicitation work products, you will be almost very clear regarding the requirements of the consumer, and you will be able to start designing models based on whatever you have gathered, which we will be seeing later on. That's all for today. Thank you.